Have you ever thought to yourself, when I communicate in a foreign language, I find myself translating back and forth from English? This is a process that consumes a lot of mental energy. Let's say your target language is Spanish, and you are having a conversation with a native speaker. Spanish arrives to your brain as input, but in order to understand it, you translate what you have heard into English. In order to respond, you think first in English and then translate into Spanish before you speak. This way of communicating will leave you exhausted. Wouldn't it be great if you could understand Spanish and produce it without having any interference from English? This skill will require work in both the comprehension and production pieces of communication. In this video, you'll learn a technique for the production piece that will result in you being able to produce a foreign language without translating. How to think in a foreign language when you're speaking. Step 1 is to consume comprehensible input in the target language. Step 2 is to extract useful vocabulary, phrases, or structures that you can see yourself using in future conversations. And step 3 is to practice with the language that you've extracted, either by yourself or with a native speaker. Let's take a look at an intermediate or advanced Spanish example. So step 1 is to choose the comprehensible input. For this example, we'll be using a book called La Distancia Entre Nosotros. Here's what the cover of the book looks like, just so you know. And I'm currently in the second part of the book in chapter 4. And highlighted in blue, this is the phrase that I'm going to extract. And here's the phrase: Ingresé al consultorio y el dentista me pidió que me sentara en una enorme silla de cuero. Here's the general structure of the phrase that I have underlined. It's using the verb pedir in the preterite, so it's the past tense version, plus que, plus the imperfect subjunctive. So the third step is then to take this phrase and practice with it. So first we'll look at how you could do this by yourself. So basically what I'm going to do is think of different situations where somebody would ask me to do something, and then I'm going to go ahead and write out what that sentence or phrase would look like. I would recommend actually not typing this on a computer. I think it would be better to use a pen or a pencil and actually write it out on paper. And also I would suggest then reading the phrase or the sentence out loud. So here we have the first one I came up with. Mi mamá me pidió que le ayudara a limpiar la cocina. So in this first group of examples, I will be using the exact same structure that we saw in the book. So it's another person asked us to do something. And for this first group of examples, I'll also stick with regular AR verbs. So my second example then would be: Mi jefe me pidió que llegara al trabajo a tiempo. And the final one: La dependiente me pidió que pagara con una tarjeta de crédito. And so you can make as many sentences as you want. There's no limit here. So what I like to do then, because we all know that verbs are kind of something that cause some problems for English speakers and Spanish because of all the different conjugations. And so what I would do is take this general structure and change it a little bit so that it's not exactly how we saw it in the book. So for example, I might say: Le pedí a mi mamá que me ayudara con mi tarea. I could also say: Le pedí a mi jefe que me diera un aumento de sueldo. Or I could be talking to you and tell you what I asked: Te pedí que me dijeras la verdad. Or I could come up with something where they are asking me to do something. Me pidieron que les mostrara mis documentos de inmigración. So now it's your turn. Again, here in the box to remind yourself, here's the general structure of the phrase we're practicing with. And I've given you some information. Let's see if you can come up with a sentence on your own. So the information I've given you is el profesor, and then the verb would be no hablar for in the first person, and then la clase. So it might look something like this: El profesor me pidió que no hablara durante la clase. Here's another example. El policía, again with yo, levantar las manos. El policía me pidió que levantara las manos. So if by chance you have a native speaker that you can practice with, This is just an example of what you could do with another person. So you would basically tell your partner to ask you to do something, and then you will repeat back to that person what they have requested. So it would look something like this. Your partner would say, dame un abrazo. And then you would say back to them, me pediste que te diera un abrazo. Or they might say, tráeme un vaso de agua. And then you would say, me pediste que te trajera un vaso de agua. Let's review the steps. Step 1 is to consume input in the target language. Step 2 is to identify vocabulary or phrases that you want to use in conversation. And step 3, the most important step, is to practice with these words and phrases until it becomes automatic. I hope you've enjoyed this video and invite you to subscribe to my channel, like, and share this video. Until next time, ciao.